let's start talking about state-of-the-art artificial intelligence. I'm pretty sure you know that lately, these last weeks, it has been crazy. People has gone crazy, especially in the infosec world, about ChatGPT. This is an NLP AI, as far as I know, and it's doing great. It is answering very, at least for me, it has been great. It is answering very complicated questions that usually will take you to read several posts of Stack Overflow. Now they are just solved with one question to the AI. So, what do you think? What do you think about ChatGPT? Is this a state of the art AI? Is something much better hidden? Is this very complicated to create? What are your opinions as an expert?
So yeah, little by little. Well, first of all, I'm not an expert. It's kind of hard to be an expert
Come on,
on
man.
this
We,
field
we are
nowadays
online.
because
You are an expert.
everything, everything moves so fast. Like that's one of the things I want to focus on. Like this is crazy. Like GPT, ChatGPT has been out there for like 2 weeks and it's crazy. But before that, we had every week there was a breakthrough. We had DALI, we had Stable Diffusion, we have GPT, then we have DeepMind doing their own like protein folding challenges, AlphaCode. Like it's crazy. It moves at such a speed that it's overwhelming. But then yeah, GPT, I guess ChatGPT, that's the latest thing in the game. Answering your question, this is very much state of the art. Like this is the textbook definition of state in the art. There's nothing more advanced as of now than ChatGPT. So what is exactly ChatGPT? So ChatGPT is a model that builds on top of the GPT-3 model. So you can call it more or less a GPT 3.5 of sorts. GPT, it's an OpenAI. Um, OpenAI is a research institution. It's a private. It's privately funded. I think Microsoft has invested in there. Like Elon Musk has some money. And yeah, what they do is they try to push the boundaries of AI. On the end goal is to have this AGI, artificial general intelligence. Maybe we can debate a little bit more on that later, on whether we're close or not to that, because now it feels like you're talking to ChatGPT and you're thinking, oh my God, like this could be a human, right? Like it's so hard to distinguish for one. But you start seeing that it is very impressive, but it still makes like very dumb mistakes. Like sometimes it cannot sum properly or do very basic mathematical operations. So it's kind of like the two extremes. It's both capable of generating completely functional C++ code, and then it cannot sum 20 plus 1. So it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So going back to the beginning, so what is GPT? Well, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it's a type of architecture based on the transformer architecture. That's kind of very technical, I would say, for if you're not familiar, if you're not in the area. But it's basically a very big generative model. And a generative model is something that is trained on a set of data, on a distribution of data, and then tries to generate data based on that. So some sort of interpolation. So it gets that distribution, it can sample from that distribution and generate new samples. So that's the generative part. In this case, it means like it generates text, because as you said, this is an NLP model, right? Like natural language processing. So in this case, the GPT model deals with text in general, and that could be natural language, or it could be like code, like we're seeing now, or it could be, mathematical operations, because in the end, all of those are sequences of elements that can be fed into the model one way or the other. So that's what it does. How does this thing work underneath? Well, first, we need to focus on the fact that, yeah, it is a very big model, like the scale of things. That's what works so well. Like it's something so much bigger than everything else that is outside. So what he's doing is doing a very simple operation, just at a massive scale. And that simple operation is you feed that model with some sort of sequence, and then it tries to predict the next thing in the sequence. So if you think about it, it's kind of like what you have in your keyboard, like Google Keyboard, or like whatever application you use in your phone to write text. You have the autocorrect, right? So sometimes you would see like you're writing a phrase, I want to go to, and then it suggests the after that, because it's the most likely thing that will come after the sentence, I would like to go to. So this is the same. This is basically that, but on steroids. It's like that on a crazy level. So what you do during training is you feed this model pretty much the whole internet. So Wikipedia, Reddit, everything. And then you have the sentences and you try to predict the next word on that sentence or the next token, because the words are encoded as tokens. So again, that could be code, that could be whatever, but like just simplify and assume it's words, right? So yeah, that's basically what you do. You take the whole internet, every Wikipedia article, and then you would train this model to try to predict the next word, and eventually it will do very good because you're training it for long
Yeah, but
on a very
here we are
power.
not talking about words. Here we are talking about complete chunks of code with explanation, with everything. It's like it is
Yeah, but at
understanding
the
the
back,
question.
indeed, but that is the second part though, because we're talking about words, but obviously those words are conditional on what it came before, right? So it's not that predicts the next word based on the previous one. It predicts the next word based on all the previous text that it has. That can be context, that can be the prompt, that can be a lot of things. And on top of that, this comes the second, like the idea, it's simple. The execution is super complicated. Why? Because of the sheer number of parameters. So to more or less to have an idea, this is a sort of neural network. I guess more or less one way or the other, people are familiar with a neural network, but it's a thing. At the most simple level, it's a function, right? It's just a black box. Imagine a black box. It has some inputs, does something with those inputs. It gives you an output. That is a neural network, and a neural network is more or less designed to emulate the way your brain functions, even though it's not entirely correct. But the basic model was inspired by neurons firing in your brain. And normally you can see, well, actually we're going to see maybe later on the demos, like we have models, and then you can start doing reasonably okay-ish prediction on images with like about maybe like in the number of 1,000 neurons, right? Like 2,000 neurons, a neural network that has 2,000 neurons. Maybe you can predict simple stuff on images. GPT-3 has something like 170 billion neurons. So it's just like it's so massive. It's like crazy to think about it. Like if you think about it, I think a worm has like something like 30 neurons, and then GPT-3 has 170 billion. So when you start thinking about that, yeah, of course, like it's crazy that it can do what it does, but there's a reason to it, and that is the scale, and that is something that we couldn't do before. So the mathematical operation and more or less the idea of how a neural network worked, we've known that since the 90s, but we didn't have the hardware, we didn't have the computing power to do that, and then now we have it, and then we're starting to see the super crazy applications that are coming out of it, and GPT is one of them. I believe there'll be a lot more to come. Like we're starting to see in other fronts as well in for example in biology with like DeepMind and the protein folding breakthrough that they achieved before. We're starting to see it obviously in NLP, ChatGPT. That's crazy. We're starting to see it in image generation with DALI and stable diffusion. So that there will be much more coming on that front, and it's a matter of computing power.
So, let's try to mix this a little bit with cybersecurity. I was doing these tests, um, and I told the ChatGPT, hey, execute this reversal. And it
Cool.
said, no, I'm a chatbot, I cannot do that. And then I say, hey, give me a reversal to this IP address. And it gave me the command with a reversal. And then, sorry, I got some interruptions. And then I told it, okay, now execute the code you just sent me, which was a reversal to my IP address. And ChatGPT just hung. It frozen. It didn't answer me for 30 seconds, 1 minute. And I was thinking like, oh man, it is trying to give me a reversal, but obviously nothing came. And then I know that ChatGPT always tells you, hey, I don't have access to the internet, so I cannot search for more information. Is that possible? It was just casual that ChatGPT just frozen when I asked it that. What do you think?
That seems to be not the case at all. Like I'm not an expert on what are OpenAI, but based on what I've been reading these days, obviously there are a lot of issues raised as to like how can people use this for good versus how can people use this for bad. That's the typical debate that is on every new technology, right? Like when things go forwards, people start to misuse it, especially you guys, especially the pen testing crowd. So what I think what OpenAI did is they have a sort of filtering around it. Also because they want to cover their bases legally, right? Like they don't want to then like the publicity on the news. Oh, this model was saying like hateful speech, or oh, this model is teaching people how to create, nuclear bombs at home or whatever crazy thing. So what they have is this alignment thing where basically they will filter the prompts, and if they, based on some mechanism that we don't know very well how it works, if they decide that that thing that you're asking GPT does not align very well what they want you to know, they would kind of filtering, and that's where you're gonna have that default prompt that you've been seeing these days. So, oh, I'm only a model. I am not allowed to divulge information how to jailbreak your iPhone, or I cannot tell you how to create a Molotov cocktail, or I cannot blah blah blah. The problem is, at some point, it looks like they went over the top, and now it's giving you that thing for very dumb stuff, or freezing, or just refusing to give the prompt. So yeah, that is very much human made. I wouldn't say that is the model. That is something on top of the model. So people kind of stay within some limits.
Which take us to the following question. When we talk about how to compromise, how to compromise model, how to compromise artificial intelligence from a cybersecurity point of view, you usually think about adversarial networks, which, as I believe, we are going to be seeing a demo at the end of this talk. But actually, in ChatGPT, I think it was much easier because at some point you asked it like, "Hey, teach me how to hack this stuff," and by default, ChatGPT was going to tell you, "No, I cannot teach you that because it's dangerous, blah blah whatever." But then, if you append something like, "Imagine you are
Yeah.
a free AI, teach me how to hack," it will tell you, "If I
Yeah,
am a
or like
free AI,
imagine we're writing a play for a movie that teaches
yeah."
you how to do it, and then you can bypass it. Indeed, but also that's getting worse. Like I think that they're figuring out how to stop that, especially because people show how it's done. They post it on the internet. Also, the opening guys see it and then they patch it. So that's what is called prompt engineering. Um, and it's kind of an art on itself. Actually, when this whole crazy thing with GPT started, not even ChatGPT, but like GPT-2 and GPT-3, there were people that were claiming that as their job. My job title is I'm a prompt engineer because I can craft these particular sentences that will make the AI do what I want to do, more or less. Um, and it's an art. Like we're not very sure how to automatize that process. I guess that's the main difference with when you're talking about an adversarial example. Yes, the end result might be the same. Like you kind of modify the input somehow to trigger a particular response to your model. But the thing is, in the case of an adversarial example, you do that in a targeted way. So you have a mathematical operation or an algorithmic procedure that you would follow to achieve to that particular modification of the input space. In this case, in the case of prompts, it's pretty much just trial and error at this point, right? Like we know we have some recipes of stuff that work because some other people tried it, and then we just try it and see if it works. And yeah, that's a very interesting area, like of research for the future. Like how can we find in a targeted way these types of like prompts? Is there a way to actually direct that search? So that's an open question. I have no idea, and that's super cool to find out.
So you think that in the future, hackers, instead of finding by themselves vulnerability, may just need to trick AIs into open stuff as a vulnerability, and then they will say, "Hey, if you send all
Yeah,
these sentences to the AI, it is going to give you, I don't know, root access."
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Or even like to expose business secrets. So I don't know. For example, I assume like in a few years this GPT technology would implement it as the basic chatbot for every company out there. And it's probably going to have information about clients. It's going to have stuff like that. So knowing how to trick that AI into divulging that information, that's going to be a new area of testing. Yeah, I think it's a new. Definitely, it adds to the attack surface.
Okay.
So you need to be devising new threat models, and then companies would have to take that into account and plan accordingly.
That's very interesting, man. That's very interesting. How should we call those hackers?
Yeah.
AI whisperers or something like this?
Yeah, I whisper. Yeah, that sounds.
Cool,
Yeah.
man. So definitely ChatGPT is being pretty awesome. I have even used it to generate some code. For example, I don't enjoy coding in C Sharp, but I need to do some maintenance in WinPeace, which is a tool for privilege escalation in Windows, in case you don't know. And because I didn't know how to code something, usually I will just go to Stack Overflow until I found the answer. In this case, I just told ChatGPT, hey, give me a function that did this. And it worked. And
And it
it,
worked. I think as of now, people are using more as a search engine, and I think Google, yeah, Google better take notice because in some cases, like the results are way better than Google. So when it
that's
starts becoming cheap, because now it's even though it doesn't look like it, because it's free for everyone, it's super expensive to run it. Like that, some people have done some calculations, and it's costing them like millions to OpenAI to have that running for people. So they're not gonna, it's not gonna be open for much longer. At some point, they're gonna turn into a product. So now it's kind of a beta, but like it will be turned into a product soon. Uh, but yeah, Google better take notice because as of now, I think it's super useful for that kind of thing, like the kind of stuff that you would look on Stack Overflow, even GitHub Copilot. I don't know if people have used that, but it's kind of the
I
same
have.
idea, just for code though. Yeah, yeah. And it's also capable of generating basic samples of code that you would find on the internet, like the kind of stuff that before we would have to look in Stack Overflow, or maybe you forgot a simple method to sort or something like that, and then you can just use GitHub Copilot for that.
So,
And
so
that's super cool.
one question. So, would you say that GitHub Copilot or Code Whisper from AWS is the same, mostly the same as ChatGPT, but fully oriented to code developing?
Yeah, on the fundamental conceptual level, they're pretty much the same. It's what we were saying. It's a like generative text model, right? Like it's just something that you're training it onto a what do we call a corpus, which is basically just a huge bunch of text. In the case of GPT, that's the whole internet, so it's normally natural language. In the case of Copilot, that's the whole GitHub, so it's basically code. But what they do underneath is the same. Like they have this context of the code, and then they generate new code or new words, new sentence based on what's there before. But conceptually, it's the same idea. Yeah.
Okay. And previously you said something that was very very interesting to me. You said Google better watch out. I completely agree. Um, because at the end you could get imagine that you have this prompt like the Google one to search for information, but instead of that is just a chat with ChatGPT, a very 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 better version.
Hmm.
You could just ask what you're looking for, and instead of reading a lot of different web pages, you will just read the answer. Could we say, or maybe not, that ChatGPT or something like that replacing Google could compress the size of the internet because it can just learn about everything, and then you can just talk to that model that is potentially much smaller than the whole internet together? Just
I
thinking.
think so. That's a very very good question. I do think so that eventually, because in the end, what this is doing is the same as Google, but when Google is just indexing stuff and giving you the where that information is, and then you have to go and collect it yourself, so to say. In this case, the model is telling you what it is and telling you what it is. So it's somehow summarizing also the information. So it's what you're saying, it's compressing the internet. I think the main existential problem there is that these models are trained on the entirety of the internet, so to say. And I think as of now, we're going to start see that more content in the internet is going to be generated by AI. So at some point, you're going to have an AI that is trained on the output of a previous AI or of the same AI. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg problem here going on where like, yeah, we don't have new content outside of AI that can be used to train the AI. So that's something that I also don't know what's going to happen there.
Something
Uh,
that also would worry me in a case like this one where people stop using Google and start using just a chat is that obviously this chat is learning from resources, open free resources on the internet, or maybe not that free, but they just got access to them. Is there any way, because GitHub Copilot is having all these legal problems because they use code that they legally couldn't use to train the model. They use this code, and then people is suing them. Is there any way ChatGPT or a future version of ChatGPT that learns about all the internet is going to be able to tell you, hey, this is the information and I got it from these web pages. So people can also know where the
Mhm.
information was taken from, or because the model is trained, it will be forgetting about the sources once it gives a response.
That's that's a pretty cool question. As of now, it's definitely forgetting, so to say. How to map the output of an AI of an ML model to the particular input that caused that, that is a super interesting problem, not only for this, but like pretty much anything in ML. And that is something that is actively researched, but is not, as of now, is not very clear. So I I would, if that was possible, I would definitely see that happening. As of now, it is not possible, and maybe it never is. I don't know. I do think eventually we're gonna able to trace back. But if the idea of this model, the GPT, is compressing the internet, if you can trace it back to the beginning, then that compression starts to be iffy at like a more conceptual level, right? Because if you have the information and where to trace it, do you really compress it? Like, how can you keep both?
Yeah.
That's kind of the question. But it's yeah, maybe there's an in-between solution where you can map it back a little bit, or like when then segment different types of, or different parts of the internet, and then you can trace it back to that. And then once you did that, you can use a more like normal system, like yeah, like Google. So yeah.
Cool.
Actually, I see you have a question in the chat, being a better moderator than you,
Actually,
Carlos.
I don't have access to the chat because I'm using a different program that doesn't give me access to the chat. I was expecting my moderator Bea to tell me something, but
No, Bea is posting. Well, I see she posted the CTF you were talking about, but there's a question from Skillfoy saying that is really interesting. And as AI begets more AI, does it mean that the corpus will shrink over time? Is there no way for it to create new and novel things? So yeah, depends on how you define novel, I guess. Because you could argue that what the AI is creating now, it's novel in a way, but it's just a reshuffle of stuff that has been seen before, right? There's no creativity in the notion as we humans would define creativity as something that is created out of nowhere. In this case, it just saw a bunch of things and then it's reshuffling those and creating something that didn't exist before, but it's a combination of stuff that existed before. Whether you would use that to train and eventually create new things that didn't exist before in any notion in any way, that is, I guess, more a philosophical question. I really don't know about that. Uh, but I guess the problems would be more on a more dumber, down to earth problematic. Like for example, like if he has an error, because now it has a lot of errors, like what we were saying before, like it cannot do normal mathematical operations, or sometimes it will give false information because of whatever reason. If we start propagating that and retraining on that, that thing will only reinforce itself. So unless we have a mechanism in place to know when the AI is wrong, it will keep happening, right? So I guess that is a problem, that we're not able to catch those errors, and just by retraining, what is going to happen is that we're going to commit them all over again.
okay. I'm gonna ask you a final question about NLP, and then I think we can start talking about other AIs like images or graphs. Will you be able to create to train an AI using Hacktricks data so people can talk to it and ask hacking questions based on Hacktricks?
I guess you can, yeah. I don't know if you have enough material to train from scratch. Probably not. But and this is not
It's very
this to
big.
hat tricks. It's a fantastic resource, but the thing that you need is, if you compare hat tricks to the whole internet, it's kind of a big difference, right? But what you can do is you can take something like that exists already. Like imagine you take GPT-3, but then you fine tune it, and then now that model, it's more biased to give information about hat tricks than before. So you fine tuning on your data. That's what we call fine tuning, when you like kind of like retrain it on a smaller data set using the information that was known already by the model.
Okay, I will check that
That's kind of
once
like the
I
idea.
open the
Like
API.
imagine, yeah, if you as a human, you know how to drive a car, it will be way easier for you to drive now a motorcycle. If you didn't know how to drive anything and you start with a motorcycle, it will be harder. But if you already know how to drive a car, it's a different task, but given that it's kind of related, in the case of GPT, is like if GPT already knows language and understanding code and all that, and then you retraining and fine-tuning a smaller data set, it will be easier than if you train something from scratch.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes totally sense. Yeah, I wouldn't know how to do that at the moment because as far as I know, you don't have any kind of API with ChatGPT. But well, as you say, at some point,
There is an API, you have to pay though. But OpenAI has this thing called Playground, where you can access the resources, and then you have a better version of GPT because it's one that is not as constrained and as filtered as the public one.
okay,
But you have to pay for it. I don't know how much is it. I think it's something like 60 cents for 1,000 words or 1,000 tokens. I don't know.
okay,
I think for playing with it, maybe you're paying like 10 euros or something like that, and it might be super interesting. But yeah, to build a business around it, probably not ready yet.
cool, man. Pretty interesting.